this is your trial
Where are you
run.
living now?
Well, we're back in Indiana.
Okay. This morning we're here at the Palm Springs Air Museum. I'm Dr. Dave Thompson along with Bill Gaudreau here, and we're going to interview Paul Torian. Paul is really a special guy, mainly because he's from my hometown, Evansville, Indiana. And so, but in addition to that, he was in the Marine Corps during World War II, fought in the Pacific. So we're going to talk to him about that and a lot of other things. Paul, nice to have you here.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Okay, so tell me again, when and where were you born?
Born in Evansville, Indiana, 1920. November 1920. I'm 81 years old.
November the what?
November 29.
Okay. And you were talking a little bit about your background, Torian. What were you telling me again about where that might have came from?
Well, we're not sure, but it's been traced back to a little pocket between Switzerland, France, and Italy. And I don't know. We think it's Swiss, but it might have originally been Toriano, and it dropped the O. So we don't know. Of course, IAN, you usually think, well, that guy's an Armenian, but I don't believe I'm an Armenian.
Yeah. And Bill, you were saying when they came into Ellis Island, what would they do?
Well, they relied a lot on the pronunciation of the or if they didn't actually hear the word, they would look at it, and not being familiar with that particular language, they would just quickly write it down. And then, of course, a lot of the immigrants were themselves illiterate.
Okay, and what did your dad do, Paul?
Insurance, property and casualty insurance, and then when I got out of the Marine Corps, I went business.
And was your dad born in Evansville? What did your relatives? I mean.
Yeah, he was born and raised there, and my grandpa was, and they came up through Kentucky and settled in Evansville. I went business with my dad. Stayed in that business till I retired about 12 years ago.
And Evansville's on the Ohio River in the southwest corner, just across the street, across the river from Kentucky. So most of our ancestors came, and all mine did, pretty much up through Kentucky or from Ohio. And
people think we talk like Kentuckians. Of course, we don't.
Of course not.
If you go across the river, you can really tell it.
Yeah, sure can.
It's funny. I was out here, at least 20 years, I guess. I kind of moved around after I left Evansville. One day I was talking to my mom on the phone. I said, my gosh, my mom has an accent.
That's right.
Yeah. First time I realized that she sounded differently than I thought. And what was your mom's maiden name?
Tewksbury, Tewksbury. It's my middle name. She's obviously, her family's very English.
Yes.
And
what was her first name?
Catherine.
And had her family been in Evansville for a long time?
No, they were from Boston, Massachusetts, and my father went to Cornell. My mother went to Wellesley, and they met back there. And that's probably the main reason I went to Dartmouth, which is Ivy League school, New Hampshire, because of that Eastern background my mother and father had.
Where did they go to high school in Evansville? The only one, right?
Oh, the only one.
Central. Right.
That's where I went.
That's where my parents went. Did you? Yeah. Did you have any brothers and sisters?
One brother who now lives in Rancho Santa Fe, California.
Was he older or younger? And what was
younger.
His name? What was his name?
3.5 years younger.
What was his first name?
Jim.
Jim.
He went Central also.
What was your dad's first name?
Garnett, Garnett.
And your mom's first name?
She was Catherine.
Oh, you said Catherine, right? Yeah. Now your grandparents, or your grandfather, what did he do, or what did your grandparents do?
Well, they were in the wholesale clothing business, and they office down there on Northwest First Street, which you remember well, Dave, and they covered an area of about a radius about 100 miles and sold hats and sweaters and that kind of thing.
Where was your home? Or where did your house?
709 Southeast 1st Street, downtown.
Okay, well, I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit here, but tell us about the 1937 flood, if you recall it.
I left my house in a rowboat. We went, my brother and I were, my dad stayed. My brother and I, he sent my brother sent us out of there in a rowboat. We went down to a train station, caught the CNEI, went to Indianapolis, and stayed with a minister up there for about a week. But we had a lot of water.
The reason it's First Street, it's like the first or second street right from the river.
Yeah. So how many feet of water would you say was in the streets?
Well,
enough to float a rowboat, obviously.
There were some houses. Ours was built up a little bit, but there were some houses. There was one house I know of very well on Southeast 2nd Street that had water on the second floor that had never had it on the first floor. So that was the 1937 flood. That was a big boy.
It was. Yeah. So did you have a lot of damage at your house?
Basement only.
Did you have any? Do you have any photographs of the flood or your dad's pictures?
No, not really, Dave. Back then, I don't think the people weren't as conscious of it.
I have some books from my mom gave me about Evansville, and I've got some pictures. So we'll put that into your story, because that was really a happening.
Yeah, good.
So, so what grade school did you go to then?
Wheeler. That's now a parking lot for Wellborn Hospital.
Oh,
Well, Wellborn's been bought by St. Mary's, but it's hospital parking lot.
Yeah. And what did you and your brother do for entertainment and stuff like that? Play a lot of sports? Or?
Well, we didn't do anything very exciting, because back then, my father was tough. I mean, really tough, and not comfortable enough to get by satisfactorily financially, but not comfortable enough and or generous enough to be frivolous with us. I remember when I had my allowance, high school, when I was in high school, junior in high school, $1.50 a week, and lunch cost a quarter. And I said, Dad, that's 5 lunches, that takes $1.25. He said, that gives you 25 cents left over. I didn't think that was very much, but
yeah. Of course, you're talking about growing up during the Depression,
right?
And some people had a lot worse off, I suppose, than you guys did.
Oh yeah, yes. I say we were comfortable. My father was very conservative.
Able to work the whole time?
Yeah.
What did your father do for work?
Well, he was in insurance business, and
how did he get into that? Well, he went to college.
He went to Cornell. Studied architecture.
And your grandfather, what did he do?
My grandfather was wholesale clothing business, and my father was an architect in the East, and he came back to Evansville because his brother had passed away, and my grandfather wanted his son back, so he came back and originally went in the clothing business with him, but then broke off and started insurance agency.
Were there many insurance agencies around in those days? I mean, they're all over the place now, but
Dave, probably not, but seems as if now there are a lot of them.
Yeah. What was the name? What agent did he start his own? Or
Torian, yeah.
Did you ever go swimming in the river? You don't have?
Or
boating or anything?
I never did. I can remember when some of the crazy guys in my class, when the river froze, walked across it in the winter. You probably remember that too.
Well, I remember my dad talking about it, yeah.
I wasn't.
I mean, the river is, it's what, about a half a mile wide at least? Or?
About, yeah. Right there in Evansville, yeah. It'd be a half to 3/4.
Yeah, and it was frozen all the way across.
I'm not from that part of the country. What river was that?
The Ohio
That's
River.
Ohio.
Yeah, next to the Mississippi is
Yeah.
probably the biggest one. And in some places it's
Yeah.
bigger than the Mississippi, I think. Yeah.
I wasn't tough enough to walk across that river because it was chunks of ice. You know, it wasn't smooth surface. Chunks that had washed down and then they froze, and then it was tough track.
Did you play any sports at Central?
Well, not much. Actually, not too much. I played a little basketball at Dartmouth. Rode the bench, but I'd get in once in a while. Our Dartmouth back then had pretty good teams, and I was about 11th or 12th man. And I remember I got in against Yale one time and scored 11 points because the only reason I did was because our coach was a very good friend of Red Rolfe, who was coach of Yale, and he didn't want to. Our coach didn't want to run up the score on him, so he went very deep down the bench.
Yeah. Did you play some at Central too then?
No, I didn't.
I remember. Do you remember Lee Hamilton?
Very well.
Okay.
Very well.
When I was born in 1939, so like when I was in grade school, because my mom and dad had gone to Central, so I followed their basketball team, and and they had he and Gene Southworth and Joe Switz, I think, and some guys. This was around 46, 47,
Yeah.
I guess.
Oh, that was a tough team.
And they were really good. And they went. They played Terre Haute Garfield in like the semi-state, I believe. And Hamilton had hurt his knee in the afternoon game. In Indiana, I don't know if they still do that. And they have the afternoon game, and if you win that, then you play that night. So you got 2 games in one day. But Garfield had this guy named Clyde Lavelle, like 7 feet tall, and they went to Kansas.
Yeah, that's right.
And I was listening to that game, and I just was just seething because I think it wasn't fair that they have to have somebody that tall playing against Central. Of course, they beat Central, you know.
Yeah.
But what I didn't realize was a few years ago I was watching C-SPAN or something, and Lee Hamilton is a representative from Evansville in the Congress, you know.
Right.
And I put that together. Well, that's the same
Yeah,
guy.
for a number of years.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you know him personally?
No, I don't. He was his father was a minister at he was the minister at Trinity ME, which is the big downtown Methodist church. It's on 3rd Street, just about 2 blocks south of Main. Big church. And he was the minister there, and very considered very fine man. And Lee Hamilton, of course, strong, fine human being.
Yeah. When did you graduate from high school?
38.
38. Then you went back to Dartmouth.
Right.
And what were you majoring in back then?
Economics.
Dartmouth is, where is Dartmouth?
It's in New Hampshire, Hanover, New Hampshire. It's an Ivy League school, and
the Big Green.
The Big Green, right? And nowadays, very difficult to get into. Back then, if your father had tuition, they'd figure out a way to get you in. And coming right from Central High School, my education was very average. My fault, but I was not well prepared for Dartmouth College.
So was it tough for you initially?
Very, and typically though, back then anyway, the high school boys were way behind the prep school boys freshman year, sophomore. By sophomore, junior year, they're starting to catch up because if you come from a high school, you have to work a lot harder. Prep school boys, it's easy for them. And by the time you're seniors, high school kids have passed the prep school. And by the time I was a senior, I didn't think it was so tough, but I thought it was awfully difficult first couple of years.
When did you get your first automobile? What did you drive? What was that you drove first?
I guess first one. Well, my first one was Plymouth when I got back from overseas. That would have been, gosh, that would have been 1945.
Was it new?
It was an old Plymouth.
Was it new Plymouth?
No.
A used.
Yeah.
Did your dad have a car? Well, I mean, if he traveled around, he probably did.
Yeah. Family always had 2 cars, but I never had one.
Did you get to drive the family?
Oh yeah, you let me drive.
What kind of car was that?
Well, he had a Mercury and a Ford. Of course, one of his big accounts was the Ford dealer, and that dictated what kind of cars we had.
Do you remember what you were doing on December 7th, 1941?
Sure do. Very well. December 7, 1941, I'm in the library, Baker Library at Dartmouth College, and somebody passed the word around. Did you hear what happened? The Japs have attacked Pearl Harbor. We couldn't believe it. Of course, that was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. The attack happened, of course, 6, 7 in the morning. It's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon up there. I have vivid recollection of that time.
Were you, you say you were you surprised just that they attacked Pearl Harbor, or were you actually surprised that we were going to be in a war, or could you see something coming, or?
I think back then we kind of felt, I think you just felt, oh, war's coming. I don't think we expected it from the Japs, but we just thought the Germans, we're going to be in this war sometime, and the Germans had overrun, they overrun half Europe by that time, and we just felt it's coming, but the Japanese attack was really a surprise.
Were you in a fraternity at Dartmouth?
Mm-hmm.
What were you?
Phi Kappa Psi. Yeah, we had
all fraternities they're a little bit unique in some ways. Some are more academic, some are more athletic, this, that. Where did yours fit in?
Ours was, I would say, was well-rounded. And I was living off campus then, 5 of us living off campus, and the Phi Psis at Dartmouth, we pledged sophomore year rather than freshman year, which incidentally is good.
Yeah, I think so.
And we're living off campus. There were 6 of us. I had 5 roommates. And the Phi Psis, we decided we're all going to the same fraternity. And the Betas, I thought I want to be a Beta, but the Betas didn't want Donovan. And somebody else maybe didn't want Dewey. And maybe some other fraternity didn't want Torian. Phi Psi said, we'll take all 6 of you guys, and not only that, we'll build our delegation around you. And we had in our fraternity, so we got to actually do a lot of our recruiting. And we had at the Senior Honorary Society, Paleophytus, 15 members. We had 6 Phi Psis. 6 in my pledge class were Paleophytus. 6 out of 15, which is pretty much. It's just honorary, senior honorary society.
Oh, yeah.
So we felt, looking back on it, I felt pretty good. I thought the Phi Psis were very smart to take all 6 of us.
Yeah. So after December 7th, you continued on with your schooling, or what?
No, I had been in. I was in the Marine Corps at that time. I was in the reserves because I had summer training. I'd signed up. The Marine Corps had a summer training program. They called it 2 Leaders Class. It's like ROTC, where you go 8 weeks summer after your sophomore year, 8 weeks in the summer after your junior year, and then on graduation from college, you go to basic school, officer training, 90 or 100 days, and then you become an officer. So I'd had those 2 summers.
What prompted you to join that? When was that, like 38, 39?
Yeah, we signed up in, it was spring of 1940.
Was that
I
your-
mean, 39.
Was that all your buddies that you?
Yeah,
you
my
all
buddies.
Kind of did that, yeah.
We just, we knew war was coming, so we know we're going to be in it. And I don't know, we decided, somebody said, well, let's join the Marines. Yeah, that sounded like a good idea to me. And, but I got my orders. I was home Christmas vacation, December. Of course, the attack was December 7. I'm home Christmas vacation. I'm sawing wood upstairs, and my mother comes up. It's 9 o'clock in the morning with a telegram. Son, you've been, look at this. You called to active duty. So, called to active duty to report Philadelphia Navy Yard January 10th. And we, of course, I contacted Dartmouth, and there were those of us in this PLC program. We all went back to college, and they gave us hurry-up finals and comprehensive. So we graduated. I went 3.5 years to Dartmouth, but I graduated, reported to Philadelphia Navy Yard January 10th. And 100 days later, I'm a second lieutenant. And I wouldn't even drive behind the ears, but I'm ready to go.
So where did you go then?
Well, then
Where
went
you trained?
to Camp Lejeune.
I spent 2 years at Camp Lejeune.
Did you?
I was a dental officer. 2 years,
Oh.
as soon as I got out of dental school, I was there 64 to 66.
Oh, is that?
Camp Lejeune, they call it.
Yeah, right. It, yeah, it's down in North Carolina. It's,
Jacksonville.
It's hot. Yeah, there, and I went down there. I'll never forget taking over my first platoon.
Now, did you go through basic training before that, like Paris Island or places somewhere?
Well, Philadelphia Navy Yard.
Oh, okay, so that's where you had.
Yeah, and then we went to Camp Lejeune, and I was assigned to a platoon, and I remember, I'll never forget my gunnery sergeant. Boy, was I glad to have him there. I mean, he was so tough. I mean, and we had this platoon, and they, of course, those guys were tough too. There weren't many candies in there. They tough guys, but here I am. I'm a kid, and
So they had all been through basic too. Your platoon.
Well, yeah, they'd been through boot camp.
Boot
Yeah,
camp, that's what I mean.
they'd been through boot camp, and of course I'd come through officers training, so it was a little bit different. But this platoon sergeant I had became a very, very dear friend, and our paths crossed.
What was his name?
His name was, he was an Alabama farmer. His name was Aubrey, Aubrey Edmonds, Edmonds. And Aubrey was matter of fact, he got shot up pretty bad on Tarawa. And he was back here, back in the States when I came back. And he introduced me to the lady who's now my wife.
Oh.
So I appreciated his friendship right from the start.
Well, tell us how he introduced you to your wife.
Well, he'd been back here, and he was at Camp Pendleton, and of course I came back. When I came back, I was sent to Camp Pendleton, and Aubrey had been going with a girl in Los Angeles, and that girl's father thought that Aubrey was pretty old for his little daughter, and he kind of liked to have Dell, who's now my wife, that's Adele Mitry, Mittry, he liked to, Mr. Northrop liked to have Dale go along on those dates. So Aubrey, I came back, and Aubrey thought it'd be fine if I'd go up, and I'd make fourth, we'd double date. So the first date we went horseback riding, Griffith Park, and the horse, they could all ride. Aubrey had ridden all his life, and so had Dale and Nezzy Northrop. But and the horse, I was chicken, the horse knew it. He threw me, stepped on my foot, and broke 3 of my little toes. That's my first date. I'll never forget it, and I remind her every chance I get.
Oh, wow.
But
And so she was a California girl then?
yeah, yeah.
What did her parents do?
Well, Mr. Mitri was a contractor. They came over from Lebanon. He came over from Lebanon when he was like 20. I'm guessing like 20, 25 years old maybe. Construction business, and they built a lot of they built a big section of March Field, and they were primarily they were in heavy construction, dams, water treatment plants, that type of construction. I never met him because he died when Dell was 13 or 14 years old.
And what year did you guys get married then?
46.
What was the date?
October 9.
Okay, let's go back to Lejeune now. The guys in your platoon, did they show you plenty of respect and all that stuff that they were supposed to do?
Oh yes. Oh yeah. I mean, they acted like I was. Yeah. Oh yeah. They were right out of boot camp, and of course I'm the second lieutenant. So as far as they're concerned, I'm it. But I'm not. I'm obviously not tough like Sergeant Edmonds. Edmonds, he'd been in like 6 years. He was a China Marine, and he'd been enlisted man. He'd been around the world, and I'm on a 90-day one.
Well, that's what I mean. In these movies, they talk like the gunnery sergeants run the Marine Corps.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
So, how long were you there at Lejeune then?
Like.
And what would your duty be? I mean, okay, you're a platoon leader, but what do you
training. And of course we had, and the powers that be then, I'm sure we had no idea as to how long we were going to be there, where we were going.
What makes up a platoon?
Well, Marine Corps rifle platoon is 3 squads. Each squad has 3 fire teams of 4 men each, 3 4s 12, and then you had a squad leader. So you got 13 in each rifle squad. And you got 3 of those, and you've got a platoon sergeant. So you've got about 40.
And what kind of weapons?
Back then, it was the Springfield Aught 3, and that's the bolt action Springfield. Marvelous weapon.
That's right.
That was
a lot of Marines didn't like to change over to the M1,
that's right.
did they?
That's right. And then, of course, it came with the M1 Durand, which I liked, which I carried in combat. The officers, for some reason or other, officers and non-commissioned officers were issued different weapon for them than the M1. But the M1, I threw mine away and picked up the M1 because it.
What, did you have a carbine before? Did they give you a carbine?
A carbine, yeah.
M1 had more penetrate. I mean, it was.
Well, it was sure. You'd always end up with sand. And you hit the beach, you got sand, and then salt water, and M1. That thing worked. And you want something that works.
Oh, sure, right. Did you have a pistol, a 45? Did you carry a 45?
Well, that was issued. I've forgotten exactly the timing on it, but yeah, we issued pistols first. I think maybe that. I think they had officers carry pistols. I don't know whether that was early I don't know exactly when they changed. Then they had a rising gun. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but they had a gun made by Harrington Richardson. It was the worst weapon, and that was, I don't know how much was spent on the rising gun, but it was a little handheld submachine gun with a wire stock. So take that stock down, so it packaged about like that, lightweight.
Germans had one that looked something
Yeah,
like that, I think.
but this thing was no good. They had our government really must have made a terrible mistake on it, and they were discarded. But we had a period where, early in the war, I think the officers carry 45, Colt 45. Then they came out with this rising gun, and then of course the carbine, and the carbine was the one that lasted.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of officers just says, no, give me that M1.
Did you ever try the M2 carbine?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
It was the same size, but it was you could fire automatic.
Is that right?
Yeah. I had
Yeah,
that in Korea.
Did you have in Korea? Oh, yeah. Did you have any machine guns in your platoon or anything like that, or was it
Well,
just all rifle?
Yeah, not in the platoon. We had in a rifle company, you'd have three rifle platoons and a weapons platoon. And in your weapons platoon, of course, you have the air-cooled machine guns, and you have the 60mm mortars.
Any BARs?
Oh yeah, the BAR. Yeah, had a BAR in each fire team.
Oh, so
And
you had BARs too in your rifle?
Yeah. So we'd have in a platoon with 3 squads. You'd have each fire team would have a BAR-man. So you'd have 3 BARs in each squad.
The BAR is a Browning automatic
Yeah.
rifle.
Yeah.
How automatic was it? I mean, is it when you just hold the trigger down, it would just keep firing?
Mm-hmm. It was considered frankly, I always thought it was, personally, I thought it was overrated, the weapon, but a lot of people think it's a wonderful weapon, but it's heavy. The thing's heavy.
I've talked to guys that use Tommy guns too.
Yeah.
Did any of you guys have those?
We didn't, I didn't have any. We fired atomic guns, but I don't know in a rifle company, actually they weren't even, at that time they weren't.
Guys that said, they threw their, they traded somebody, they found one somewhere or something, some of them like them.
Yeah, I know some, there were Tommy guns there.
Yeah.
Not in a rifle company.
Did everybody carry hand grenades?
Well, not everybody, but.
There were some.
But they were, yeah. I never carried any, but, the hand grenades were sure used.
Well, we'll get ahead a little bit, but the platoon, the guys in Lejeune, did you stay with them pretty much all through the war? Or?
No, it was pretty much back then, pretty much mass confusion, they weren't with them very long.
Not very long.
And eventually,
Did you train more than one platoon while you were at Lejeune? Or?
Personnel changed. It would be pretty much the same.
But people would come through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I wasn't there. Wasn't there too long.
Where did you go from there then?
Well, we went from there to went across country to Pendleton, and was there not too long, and then went to American Samoa. And
I'll tell you what, I've got a map up there. I'll
Yeah.
give you a thing here.
Yeah.
Let me go, I'm going to widen this
Yeah.
out a little bit, and you can kind of point, will give us a little bit of an idea of where that was.
Yeah.
It would be down in the far right. You're down in the right area, I believe. I don't even know if it's on that map or not. It's probably not. New Caledonia is way to the right.
yeah, here's Samoa.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
And the reason we went there,
Yeah, point that out again. I'm kind of coming
Yeah.
down a little bit. Okay,
American Samoa,
right. Just
the
to
harbor's Pango Pango.
Oh, I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
And
relatively near the Solomon Islands. It's just too. It's off of the Solomon Islands. It looks like a. 100
well,
miles or
it's
so.
actually this isn't is close to scale.
No, no.
Because
It
American Samoa is not too far from Hawaiian Islands.
Okay, all right.
I don't know how far west, but I would get not over 2,000 miles, maybe only 1,000.
Right.
And Samoa, I mean, the Solomon Islands are way over here,
Right.
not too far, like, I don't know, 700 or 800 miles off the coast of Australia.
Yeah.
But Samoa was, I guess, Marines were sent there, number one. Of course, nobody knew what the Japs were going to do.
And this would have been when?
Beg your pardon?
What month? This is in 42 still?
Well, let's see. That would have been, yeah, we went there probably yes, the latter part of 42. And nobody was sure. Well, for example, American Samoa had barrage balloons. I mean, barrage balloons. There were barrage balloon battalions, and thinking, I guess, the Japs going to come in and attack, and these barrage balloons will keep them from doing any precision bombing. Now, that was a obviously far-fetched thought, but back then they didn't know. But also, we were in training, and just kind of waiting for our next assignment.
Right.
But American Samoa was really not that far from Hawaii.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what was your next assignment then?
Well, we went from there to the staging area. Went to Bougainville. I'm sorry, went to Guadalcanal and training.
Okay, and this was after Guadalcanal had been secured?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's show me where that is on the map
Yeah.
too. It's in the Solomons.
Yeah, here are the Solomon Islands.
Right.
And Guadalcanal was obviously, this is not to scale.
No.
Guadalcanal was a large southernmost island.
Mm-hmm.
Bougainville was a northern
Right.
Solomon Islands. In Guadalcanal, we went there just.
Would that have been like early 43, more or less?
That would have been, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think it's about, they secured it towards the end of the year, I believe. Yeah. Did you talk to any of the Marines that had been on Guadalcanal?
Oh, yes.
When they came off?
Yeah. Of course, Guadalcanal was the first. That was the landmark. I mean, that was our first offensive, land offensive in the Pacific. And of course, we trained there, and then we went from there to. We were in New Zealand for 7 weeks, and I guess I don't know whether we're in New Zealand to let us have a little
R&R.
down here.
Well, they trained a lot. That movie, Battle Cry. Did you see that movie?
Yeah.
They would go to Wellington. They'd be training in New Zealand,
Yeah.
and then they'd stage from there and go somewhere, and then they'd
Yeah.
always go back. It seemed like
That's right.
to stage out of New Zealand. So
Yeah.
I guess that happened a lot.
Yeah, we were in
The
the
Marines.
Auckland area, New Zealand.
Yeah, it didn't really show. I think, yeah.
This map is.
Well, New Zealand it's down where that globe is, where
Yeah.
it would be. It's south of Australia, so it didn't
Right.
really show it on there. It'd be over in there
Off
somewhere.
in here.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, we had 7 weeks in New Zealand.
How did you like New Zealand?
Well, we went to First Liberty we had. I'll never forget, went downtown Auckland. We had steak dinners were 2 and 6. That's 40 cents. And we had 3 steak dinners. We just lined them up one after another. They were so hungry for some kind of food, good food. And I'll never forget, we had a guy named Maxwell from Georgia. He was a big gorilla, and he came in there and he said, "I want a dozen eggs sunny side up." they couldn't understand him. Sunny side up, dozen eggs. Finally brought the manager over and he convinced him that he wanted a dozen eggs. And she had told him, sir, this is not a grocery store. He wanted a dozen eggs sunny side up. He not only had a dozen, he had another dozen. Sunny side up. But we had a good time in New Zealand.
Where did you go from there then?
Well, we went from there to well, we went back to Guadalcanal for a short time, and then went headed for Bougainville. That was my first landing, my first combat.
Okay, and let's take a look at that on the. Show me again on the wall there. Yeah.
Yeah, Bougainville.
Just
Bougainville is
basically
here.
up the slot from Guadalcanal, I
Yes,
guess. wasn't it? Yeah.
Actually, Guadalcanal is pretty much. Guadalcanal is quite a bit south of. They're big islands. Bougainville was probably 100 to 125 miles.
Now they had Japs have an air base there on Bougainville.
Yes.
And did their ships sail out of there? I mean, did they have a harbor and stuff like that, or?
I don't know. I don't really know why Bougainville was so strategic, except that it was 500 or 600 miles up. In other words, toward Japan.
Right.
We were moving.
That
That
way.
gave us a staging area.
Yeah.
And we got to get bases. We got to get bases further.
Yeah. Well, they could still threaten Guadalcanal from Bougainville pretty easily too. I would imagine.
Yeah, they
so
could. Right.
Get them off their back. You know?
Right.
Yeah. So tell me, what was the landing like then?
Well, our landing was. Let me put it this way: it wasn't like you saw Saving Private Ryan.
Yes.
It wasn't like that. We were opposed, but it was not. We were not heavily opposed, and we landed with a minimum of casualties.
And what did you land in? What was it? What kind of landing craft?
We landed in the craft that.
Would it go up on the?
Yeah,
Up
the
on- I mean, would it go
the
up
ramp.
Well, it had a ramp.
Yeah, the ramp goes down.
But would it go up onto the land?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, they'd go just as far as they could
It's
go.
an amphibious. type.
Yeah, and then down to go the ramp. That landing craft was replaced the old Higgins boats.
Right.
That was.
I was just going to talk about it. They built those in Evansville, as you know.
Yeah,
those
that's
Higgins
right.
boats right down on the river. I've
Right.
got pictures of a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
You know, during the war there.
Do you remember what the landing craft was called? Was it an LST or LC?
No, it wasn't an
LCDP?
LST. And I'm not sure. The LST was, well, I'm thinking of when we actually hit the beach. We hit the beach in a landing craft that would hold maybe 40, 50 men, something like that. And of course, the LST was that was the big one they built. Now they built a lot of LSTs there, and
Yeah.
that was a pretty good sized
I think it was.
vessel. But I've forgotten what that.
Okay, so the guys you were leading a platoon in.
Company,
a
rifle company.
Just like before, a rifle company.
Yeah.
Now, how long had they been with you? Had you been
Well,
training together with them?
We for the most part, we've been together for, I would say, for the most part, a year or maybe more. Now, some had been transferred in, some out, but I would say that of the company that landed on Bougainville, I'd say probably 60-70% of it had been with us for a year.
And were you the only officer?
No. Rifle company has, we have 4 platoons, and each platoon is commanded by a lieutenant. And then I was the company commander. I was a captain, and I had an executive officer who was a first lieutenant. And so actually there's 6 officers in a rifle company.
Was Aubrey still with you?
No, we'd parted. He'd landed in a he'd been at Tarawa, which was a tough operation, a lot tougher than Bougainville, and he got shot up pretty bad at Tarawa. But
what was the morale like of your guys going in?
Good. Hey, we had them.
I interview a lot of these pilots, and of course, like on the bombers, and they've got a 10-man crew, and
yeah,
it's like a team. They work as a team. It's almost like a football team or something like that. That you have to count on each other. Whether you doesn't mean you didn't socialize together so much or whatever, but you respect each other. And is it kind of like that in your platoon?
Oh yeah, I would say morale was marvelous, and there were a lot of people back then. A lot of people wanted to kill a Jap. I mean, some of those crazy guys wanted to kill one with a knife, and thought you weren't a man till you. I mean, it was. Yeah, I didn't want to engage in a knife fight with one, but I wanted. I mean, we were fired up. Now, each operation, the longer you'd go, the less enthusiastic you became. Human nature, After 2 operations, I would not have been as good a man in the 3rd operation as I was in the 1st or the 2nd. I mean, you figure your percentages. I mean, odds are you've been lucky so far. How long is your luck gonna last?
Were they from all over the country pretty much, or mostly from a certain area?
Pretty much. A lot of Marine Corps, and I presume still does, has a lot of good Southern men. I mean, it just seems that we had a lot of good ones from the South. Of course, they were from all over, though. I mean, I think some good guys we had from Brooklyn. Yeah, pretty much from all over.
So when you're going into Bougainville, what wave did you go in?
I landed the first wave anyway.
Okay, and so how many of your landing craft were in that wave, would you guess, more or less?
Oh, probably, well, we probably landed, I think we landed 2 platoons abreast. So there'd be like 40, 45 in this landing craft and 45 in this landing craft. In other words, my company. This is our zone, and we'd have all 80, 90 men landing in that first wave, and then the rest of the company would be landing right behind them.
Had the Navy softened it up any? Had they fired any shells in there?
Pretty much.
Were you taking any fire from the enemy when you were going in?
Yes, we were. A lot of the opposition, the gun emplacements at the beach, enemy gun emplacements, were knocked out. And differing from Iwo Jima, which was rock. I mean, they are just solid rock. They'd had time to. They had gun emplacements there that couldn't be knocked out. Here, this Bougainville's pretty much sand. I mean, the beach was not that heavy rock. And plus there weren't that many Japanese there defending our particular beach, and it was such a big island that they couldn't concentrate their defenses. Iwo Jima, small island. Bougainville, 100 miles, 125 miles long, I'm guessing.
And you had multiple areas that you could have landed on, so they didn't know where.
And of course, course, you try and pick the area that
At least.
they're not going to have.
Was it mostly small arms fire that you were taking when going in?
Mostly, yes. Yeah.
So, you get on the beach, ramp goes down, and you guys run out, I guess.
Right.
And so, how far is it to shelter? I mean, are there trees out there or what?
Yeah, it's probably 50 yards. We'd been aboard that ship for, like, that particular operation. We'd been aboard that ship at least 2 weeks.
And what month was that?
November of 43.
November 43.
So, November 1st. So you're out of shape. And it is so hot. And you teach water discipline. I mean, guys, don't conserve your water. Well, I was probably the worst. You're so, number one, you're scared. You're out of shape. You're excited. And your water, and it's so hot, so humid. So water is really a problem. I mean, and by the time you get across that beach, running in soft sand with a pack on your back and having people shooting at you, you're exhausted. By the time you cross the beach, if you're not dead or wounded.
Did you take any casualties crossing the beach?
Yes, some, but not too many. Not too many. We had very few casualties in that landing. Then once you hit the vegetation, it's the thickest jungle you ever saw in your life. It's just that jungle is so thick you can't believe it. And the swamp, it's just a swamp. And for that was, we were very fortunate on Bougainville that the Japanese were not they were a problem, but I mean there weren't that many of them. Yeah. Other parts of the island there were a lot of Japs, but.
So did you have to cut your way through the jungle?
Sure did.
What'd you use?
Machetes.
Yeah.
The trees that I remember most vividly are the banyan trees, big, massive trees, and where the roots started about 6 feet off the ground. The trunk comes down to here, and then the roots are, and the Japanese could get back in there, and you couldn't see them. You couldn't see them. That was one of the biggest problems we had.
How would you get them out of there?
Well, you just locating. If you could ever locate him, then you could get the job done. But the problem was finding them, seeing them. You don't know where the fire's coming from, and that was a big problem.
By it would be like throwing a grenade into there, or
well,
like
the grenades weren't too effective, really. It's swampy, and you might land in water. And the grenades were not. They would not be too effective in a case like that. It's just the rifle fire was really pretty much what got the job done.
Was it the same as we hear about all the time? Japs just would not surrender.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You get them cornered, they'd bonsai. Gonna die for the emperor. Go to heaven.
Had you been told that this is what they're going to do beforehand, or I mean?
Not really. We, of course, that was probably before we heard so much about the kamikaze the pilots that, kamikaze dive right into the aircraft carriers.
But they did a lot of that on Guadalcanal, I think, too, didn't they?
I think so, yeah. It was. And
So,
of course, yeah.
How long did it take you to complete that operation?
Well, we were out of there Christmas Day, or that's when it was November 1st to December.
So almost 2 months then. And did you? Did they have snipers up in trees like?
Oh yeah, that's the biggest problem we faced. They had snipers, and sometimes they'd get oftentimes they'd be up in these banyan trees, up off the ground, and they'd cut in from the back. So take the machete and cut out, and they'd have a field of fire about like, they have to have a field of fire about like that, and they were little, Japs were little, only about, average one was only about 4'8", little bitty guys, you know, and they'd be up there, I don't know how they'd do it, they'd hang up there, they'd get in there, have a field of fire about like that, and you just couldn't see them, but it took a direct hit. Sorry about that.
So
Supper time.
Yeah. So how many casualties did you take then on the whole operation?
We had on Bougainville, we had about, my company, we had about 35 total, about eight killed.
Any officers?
We had, we had 2 officers wounded, none killed. That was in my company. In the battalion, we had several officers killed.
Now you probably didn't wear any identifying marks that you were an officer, I don't suppose.
No.
Over there, would you?
No, not like they did in Private Private Ryan.
Yeah, well, that was one of the things that we talked about.
No, we sure didn't.
Yeah.
No, we didn't want to look any different. I didn't want to look any different from a listed man. I'll tell you, we had a lot of the Japs would pick off anyone that looked different, and the corpsmen, the hospital Navy corpsmen, I had a tremendous amount of respect for them. But they're probably the most unique looking because they're carrying a big medical kit. So the Navy corpsmen were really targets. Not so much in Bougainville, but other operations. Bougainville, jungle was so heavy, but where snipers could pick off, could see, Jap sniper could see Marine a couple hundred yards away and see somebody that's a little bit different, like a corpsman carrying it. He's the one he'd pick off.
As far as identification, did you have a white stripe on the back of your helmet?
No.
No.
The officers in Korea had a white stripe on the back of it.
Yeah.
So you could know who the officer
Yeah.
was.
No, we didn't. We didn't want to look. We sure didn't want to look different.
Did you have a radio contact? Did you have a radio man in each platoon? Or
We had Navajo. We had Navajos then, and I'll tell you, the contact radios were no good in that swamp. And back then, 59 years ago, this was. Of course, you didn't have the kind of equipment we have now, but the only communication in the heavy swamp, the lead platoon we'd have somebody there with a spool of wire, and you drop that wire and back however many yards, 200 yards, 500 yards, like every hour on the hour we'd hook into that wire.
Oh.
And that was the only communication we had. And you can imagine you get out in the middle of heavy swamp, jungle. You didn't know I didn't know what was going on over there.
I suppose if you heard a sound, you just fired. You just have to assume it's the enemy, huh?
Well, it's out in front, yeah. You never want to fire
Sideways.
back or sideways.
Yeah.
And of course, fire discipline was very, very important at night. For example, we taught never, ever fire your weapon at night inside the perimeter unless you've got a Jap to show for it. Worst thing in the world. I see somebody move, I shoot at him. He shoots back. It's the worst thing that could possibly happen. And there were some undisciplined Army units where that chaos resulted.
Well, it gives your position away too, right?
Yeah, and indiscriminate firing.
Did you get close to any of your men or any of your fellow officers, or did you try not to be so close to them so that if they got?
Oh yeah, we'd be very close. Very close.
And did you lose some of your good buddies?
Yeah, sure did.
And how did you handle that?
Well, of course, one thing you do, you get pretty steeled to adversity in the human body. A young human body can stand about anything. It's like eating. I can remember very well landing on Bougainville. Didn't eat. Of course, couldn't eat anything the first day. Didn't eat second day. And about third morning, I said to Cozard, my runner, Cozard, I need some food. He said, I do too, Captain. So we sat down there, we opened an open sea ration, and we're eating. This is 48 hours after we landed. Fanning flies with that hand, flies from the dead bodies, So you finally eating after 48 hours, shoveling food in and fanning flies. But no, Dave, yes, you get very, very close to your people, and there's so many casualties that it just goes with the territory.
Did you come across any wounded Japanese?
Yes, and occasionally we capture. Once in a while, we captured someone, and they always wanted headquarters always wanted to interrogate. Want to get a prisoner to interrogate him, and it was frankly very difficult to get a prisoner. If you, I remember on 2 occasions where we did capture someone and tried to get him to the rear, and he was always shot trying to escape. I had my best man, Sergeant Steelman. I said, Steelman, get this guy back to regiment. They want to interrogate him. I don't want anything to happen to him. Sure enough, Steelman came back. I said, Steelman, did you get the job done? Captain, he tried to escape.
And really tried to escape.
Yeah. I mean, it's, but you get, war turns you into savage. It does. It makes savage out of you. Now, my operation wasn't anything like what I've seen in the movies, like the D-Day over on landing there in France. There's nothing like that. That would really make you savage. But it does things to you. But it's either they're going to do it to you
But it seems to me that the worst is being where you can't see, and and every little sound, or in that jungle like you're talking about. I mean, it had to be just awful. I mean, you could probably never have a relaxing moment the whole time you're in there.
And you get jungle rot. You'd have the rot between your toes, other tender places. I mean, and it's just, and here they want to make women, put women in the infantry. That jungle rot, I tell you that. If that wouldn't give them fits, I don't know what would.
What about malaria? Any guys come back?
Yeah, I don't remember that being being a problem. Of course, we're on Bougainville for 55 days. There might have been cases of it, but I don't remember.
So where did you go from Bougainville then?
Well, from Bougainville, we went back to Guadalcanal, trained some more, and then from there we went to Guam. And Guam, of course, that was a little different kind of a.
Show me. Let's look up. Show me where Guam is now.
Yeah, Guam's up here in the Marianas Islands.
Right. Oh yeah.
You see, we're getting close. We're getting closer to closer to Japan.
Right.
And Guam had been a protectorate of ours, and so we were going back. We were retaking our land, and it was a smaller island. It's an island like 20, maybe 22 or 3 miles long, and like 4 to 8 miles wide. So it's not that heavy, dense, swampy jungle. It's a little different. And there were some coconut groves, and there was plenty of jungle, but there are coconut groves, and there's some rolling terrain, and it's just a different, entirely different type island. And we, on that particular operation, I was aboard ship. My unit was aboard ship for 7 weeks. And the reason, when we landed there, we were really out of shape. I mean, you talk about running across that soft sand. I thought I'd never get across it. But the reason for that was that Saipan was more heavily fortified. Saipan is also Marianas, and a different division landed at Saipan. 3rd Marine Division was in reserve for Saipan. If they were needed, we were going to land there. But it wasn't known whether we were going to be needed in Saipan for several weeks. So we would at night, we'd steam toward the shore, and then we're not needed, so the day we head back out to sea. And that went on for over 2 weeks. So we're aboard that ship for 7 weeks, and we finally landed Guam, and that was a very, very speaking of being tiring, that really was mean going across that.
I meant to ask you, so you were in the 3rd Marine Division?
Right.
All along, even when you were at Lejeune? Or when you were at Lejeune, were you in the 3rd?
Well, no, the 3rd Marine Division was farmed. It was farmed in California.
Okay.
It was farmed in 1942 in California. So in Lejeune, we're just a
training.
No particular unit.
And what regiment were you in?
Third.
Third
Yeah.
Regiment, Third
I was
Marine
I
Division.
was K Company, 3rd Battalion, 3rd Marine Regiment, and 3rd Marine Division. So we're K333, which I've ordered for my license plate, incidentally.
Oh,
I
yeah.
thought, God dang, I ought to get that
You should.
license
Yeah,
plate.
that would be good. Yeah. Why not? Yeah. So, was it the landing similar to the one on Bougainville? Did you go in the same kind of craft?
Pretty much. A little different in that, well, it's an entirely different terrain. And Guam, there was a little more opposition on Guam than Bougainville, but Guam was not, and of course they were able, being a smaller island, there are fewer possible landing beaches, so that they don't know whether we're going to land here, or here. But Bougainville, there might have been, I don't know, there might have been 25 places where we could have landed. So, my point is, they're better able to defend. The smaller the island, the tougher the defense could be. On the other hand, you might say, well, if it's small, we should be able, with naval bombardment, why can't we knock out the opposition early? Well, Guam, there were several rocky high ground that came right out to the ocean, and they were able to burrow in up there, come in from behind, and they had fields of fire looking right down the beach, so they were better able, they had better terrain, better able to set up defensive positions.
You had about same thing. There was a tree line or vegetation that when you got out, you went across the sand.
Pretty much,
go
but
about
not,
the same.
not quite as not as dense. It was, but once you got inland, then yes, there were trees, but nothing like Bougainville. Is just all of a sudden you're in a dense jungle.
Take many casualties going across the beach.
Yes, more than at Bougainville, but not severe. That is in my unit.
Any particular things that you remember about Guam as far as any skirmishes or anything particular?
I remember. I think the thing I remember, my most vivid memory of Guam was declared secured in 21 days. That was August of 1944, and the thing I remember most vividly about Guam was the last, and I don't remember whether the day before the island was declared secured. Incidentally, sometimes the general declares island secured when there's a lot of fighting going on. Yeah. And Guam, there was a lot that went on after they declared it secured. But we had pushed up close to the end of the island, the one end of the island, and we had, and I would guess, I don't know, we might have been 300 yards from the end of the island, and the remaining Japanese were, of course, we were eventually going to move right to the water, and they'd have no place to go. And there were cliffs there. I mean, they were up 100, 200 feet. So they're either going to have to jump off, or or surrender, or we're going to kill them. So this particular night, we knew something was coming because we could hear the sake bottles clacking. They've still got some sake in there. You can hear some strange noises, and sure enough, about, I don't remember what time it was, let's say 10 o'clock at night, they bonsai'd. And they came in with sabers. I mean, you see them in the moonlight. You see them, they're coming in, they're crazed. They're coming in. I mean, it's a kamikaze. It's a bonsai, die for the emperor and go to heaven deal. And I'll never forget that because it was, I was with my runner in a foxhole, and this is inside our perimeter. And as I mentioned before, we were taught never fire inside your perimeter unless you've got a body to show for obvious reasons. I shoot this guy here, he sees shot, he fires, and that can be terrible. Anyway, they break through our lines, and there might be, I don't know how many of them there are. We happen to be in a coconut grove, and you can see these, you hear these crazy guys yelling. You can see the sun flashing on these swords. The moon, I mean the sun, the moon, it's moonlight night. And one guy, a foxhole right next to the one I was in with my runner, there were 3 corpsmen, and this Jap fell into this foxhole, and he got up and started hacking. And the corpsman, there was not a shot fired. The corpsman, one of them had his safety on, didn't know it. Down there. Nothing happened. One of them weapon was so full of sand that it wouldn't fire, and one of them had broken it down to clean it at night, and then had a chance to put it back, put his weapon back together when night fell. So anyway, that's like 5 yards, 15, 20, 25 feet away. So we, of course, then nothing happened, and we killed him. And the corpsmen, incidentally, they were all right. They had some terrible leg wounds because he'd been hacking away at the end of the foxhole where their feet were rather than where their heads were. But that was quite an experience. Then we had another one, Jap, just almost fall right into our foxhole. Of course, we waiting there. We were able to take care of him, but he laid there all night. Boy, how they smelled. They had a different aroma. I know we didn't, no way we could smell good, but gee, Christmas they had a sweet smell. I don't know what it was.
Was it pretty easy digging foxholes, I guess, in the sand?
Yeah, for the most part. And you'd try and get enough depth so that you could, so that if a shell landed right close, it's not gonna.
Now, up to this point in time, had you yourself been wounded at all in any of this action so far?
I had 2. I got a piece of shrapnel right where I sit down, and then I had a shell had a shell explode right close to a foxhole one night. I say close. I don't know how close, but I had a concussion and was back in the rear for about 4 days.
Was this on Guam where this happened?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was on Guam. So I had 2 minor wounds. Nothing of consequence. Nothing.
I meant to ask you too, like after Bougainville, and when you get replacements in, how do they adapt, or how do they? I mean, do the other guys welcome in pretty well, or do they gotta kind of make their own bones more or less?
Yeah, no, I think pretty much. Replacements, kids, they obviously replacement is coming from the States, and he's he's 18 years old, and he's green as grass, and yeah, they're glad to have him. They're glad to have him. They're happier to see the replacement than the replacement is to see them. But you know, yeah, they're very, very, very well received.
So, what happened then? Did you finally push to those cliffs or in Guam? I mean,
that ended it.
oh, that was
that night.
that
That
was
ended it. They all bonsai'd, and I have no idea how many there were, but there were. I would say that for every 100, they did break through one fire team and cut his fire team all to pieces. 4-man, they were just butchered. But other than that, there were not many. We did not have many casualties, and there were a lot of Japanese killed that night. You know, I have no idea how many, several hundred. And it was it's a horrifying experience, but it hastened the certainly the war ended a lot Guam ended a lot quicker than it would have otherwise.
On Bougainville and on Guam, was it all Marines, or did you have some Army folks in there too?
No, all Marines. Now the Army did work with the Marine Corps on some operations,
right.
but we didn't in those two. Yeah.
And so where did you go from Guam then?
Well, let's see. I went. That operation ended in August of '44. I had Christmas of '44 in Evansville.
Yeah.
God, that's nice.
Oh.
I went home I went back on leave. I didn't go right from Guam. I guess we went back to Guadalcanal. And then home from Guadalcanal. I went home on I'd been over 28 months, and I went home on 30-day leave. And the idea was I was going back, and they said at the time there was a shortage of lieutenants and captains, Marines in the Pacific. Anyway, I got home and the orders were changed, and I went to, or instead of going back over, I went to Camp Pendleton. Needless to say, I'm glad I did, because the next operation was Iwo Jima, and that was terrible, much worse than what I was in.
Now, I noticed that you received a Navy Cross. What was that?
Well, that was for action on Bougainville, and it was a bad day that I can I'll tell you, it was such a bad day I can hardly remember all that happened. But we had a rifle company, not my company, another company that was shot up pretty bad, and the commanding officer was wounded. The exec, who was my best friend, was killed. Two leaders were killed, and one other was wounded, and they were down to where they didn't have any leadership at all. And I was ordered to move over and take command of that company, L Company. And you know, the Navy, and you'd probably find the Air Force, if your unit does a good job, the commanding officer is oftentimes recognized. I know the Navy is really that way. And in this particular case, my citation indicates that I was a hero, but I frankly think my unit did an excellent job, and I got the credit for it. it was not I can't say I killed so many of the enemy like typical citation reads. It was a dark, horrible day in the middle of the jungle, and things worked out. I guess my commanding officers seemed to think that things worked out pretty well.
So when you went, how did you get the news? Okay, you got to go over and take over for these.
Well, I
guys?
got it hooked in on the wire. You know, I told you about the communications. And what we do with that wire, we'd hook up every hour on the hour or on the half hour, and I'd get orders from the rear, and it was very heavy jungle, so I have no idea how far back the colonel was, but I got word that what had happened to L Company, and I was told to move over there, take command of L Company, and so one of my officers, my exec had been shot, had been hurt, so one of my two leaders took command of K Company, and I moved over to L Company, and I had no idea what was going on over there. I knew they were undergoing heavier fire than we'd had. I knew from I guess mostly from the sound, and also we were told there was more opposition over there. We knew that as we moved forward that day, but that's how I got word, was by hooking onto the wire and hearing from the colonel that I was to move over.
So how far away was it from how far did you have to go to get there?
Probably, oh goodness, if it was 200 yards, I'd be surprised, but I had no way of knowing. It was just, and to find it, to get over there was.
Did you have any of your guys go with you when you went over there?
Yeah, I had two runners. And
over. Tell me what runners do.
Well, runners, as the name implies, he's a runner to deliver. You know, I want to get word up to Railsback to move up and take that ridge, and so I send Cozart over there. Cozart, tell Rails to move up that line and take that ridge. Well, in the middle of the jungle, he really wasn't much of a runner, because where is he going to run or walk or get there? But that's pretty much what he does.
And
but
you would choose who the runners would be?
Yeah, they were.
And what would you be looking for in a guy to be a runner?
Well, we had, for the most part, in the Marine Corps back then, we didn't have any dogs. We didn't have a yard bird. We had very few of them. Let me put it that way. So I wouldn't need any. I wouldn't need a Phi Beta Kappa, but I'd want somebody solid, somebody steady, and we had a lot of steady, solid guys. But runner, he wasn't really a runner on Bougainville.
So when you guys get over there, what do you see?
Chaos.
And I mean,
The gunnery sergeant, something had happened to him. I never did find out what happened to him. Shot. I guess he was shot. Although you'd occasionally get in combat. You occasionally get someone who's in a position of command who couldn't handle it, and I think they had a little of that too. So it's just a matter of trying to
so
make sure there's no chaos, and make sure that their well, they've got a lot of casualties, and make sure that they're getting their casualties brought to the rear, and they're getting ammunition, and they'd had a firefight, and they're low on ammunition, so we doing our best to distribute ammunition and really just to kind of calm things down. And we'd had a little trouble getting there. Matter of fact, one of my runners got shot, and it was just a bad day. And now my citation reads like I was a hero, but things worked out. I should have brought that. You could read that, and then you can see what a hero I was.
Well, I do want to get that. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd like to see it because I want to make copies and things like that. But so when you get there, does someone that's there, do they fill you in somewhat on what's been going on?
Yeah. I learned that O'Neill's dead, Bowden's Turnbull's dead, Kovacs is badly wounded, Hendershot's wounded, and really they had no strong people. None of the high ranking people were still navigating, and so it's just a matter of trying to get it organized. And then there was a firefight going on too, and one platoon was still under fire, and these Japs, the Japs, the snipers up in these banyan trees were just giving them fits. They couldn't do anything about it, so we got some machine guns moved up there, and we eventually got that taken care of. And I kind of helped get that done, but it's just a bad day.
A couple things. Number one, did you guys have any flamethrowers in those days? Any of Guam or there?
Yeah, we didn't in my company, we didn't. A regiment or division did, and I don't know. We didn't use flamethrowers in the part of the action I saw, but I know flamethrowers were in use, and in a rifle company, or an infantry battalion being 800 to 1,000 men, a company being 200 approximately, battalion being 4 companies, let's say approximately 800. There weren't flamethrowers there, but in a regiment did have flamethrowers, but I wasn't directly involved in it.
The other thing I was going to ask, or we'll talk about a little bit, as I understand it, when the Japanese and the Germans, for instance, lost their officers and leaders and things, they were really kind of in a chaotic situation, whereas a lot of times, a lot of the Americans, your corporals or whoever, you'd have somebody strong guy that would kind of take over and do that, and that was a little bit more, that worked a little bit better, I think, in the American Army than it did some of those other ones where they just kind of went by the numbers, and it was a little bit more ingenuity
I
with
think
the
so.
Americans.
I think that's right. Yeah, I think that's right, Dave.
Did you have such a thing as battlefield commissions? The Army did.
No,
that.
no, not really. Not to my knowledge. Now, someone who did a good job would be recommended, might be recommended for promotion or recommended to become an officer. But I don't. It wasn't right on the spot. In other words, here's a good sergeant. Okay, you've done a wonderful job. You're now a lieutenant. Not that. I don't know exactly how that was handled, but certainly those who performed, who did the job, went up the line.
Did you make some of those recommendations for some of your people?
Well, I don't recall doing that specifically, but no, I think that kind of, no, to answer your question, Dave, no, I don't remember doing that.
Can you give us a brief synopsis of what your citation says?
I tell you, I'm gonna have to, you're gonna have to get it to you.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. It gives me credit. It gives me credit for taking command of a company, of a unit that was needed some leadership at the time.
So what time of the day did you get over there with them then?
Probably this probably happened about this probably happened around midday, I'm guessing. And of course, see, it would get dark so doggone early, because some places you could hardly see the sky. So you can imagine when that sun's this way, it's a lot different from when that baby's 2 or 3 hours from setting, because and then it got dark early.
So how long did it take before you got things in a somewhat calm situation there?
Well, it was probably, I would say probably the next day. The next day, I think we had things pretty well under control, because we'd gotten we'd taken care of, I don't know how many snipers there were, but it was just a chaos. It was a mess, and the company was trying to move forward through that area, and these snipers were picking off. And there again, they're picking off. If they see anybody who looks like he's in command, that's the one they're going to try and pick off. And I can just see my friends that were real leaders saying, "All right, move forward here," and that guy's picked off by one of those snipers.
When did you receive your Navy Cross, and where?
Well, I got I was recommended for a Navy Cross, and it was changed, cut back to a Silver Star. So I got the Silver Star. I got a picture of that. That was on Guadalcanal, being, God dang, it was sweaty, and it was hot and humid. Anyway, it's on parade. I say parade ground. It's not parade ground. It's field. It is no dirt field. And then, after the war, about 2 years after the war, maybe a year after the war, I got a letter from the Marine Corps saying that they were going to replace the Silver Star with a Navy Cross. And so some officer's coming over from Louisville, and he's going to present me a Navy Cross for replacing the Silver Star, that the records had been reviewed and it should have been a Navy Cross. So
This is when you were back in Evansville.
yeah, that's when I'm back in Evansville. So I go down to the old post office, down the Marine recruiting office. This captain from Louisville pins that Navy Cross on the chest, and they asked for the Silver Star back. So I had it there. I gave it back to him. But that's how that happened.
So do you remember when they dropped the atomic bomb? More or less.
Yeah, but I don't remember where I was.
Well, yeah.
I can't remember. I can't remember that. It's not like December 7, 1941.
But before that happened, you were thinking that you're probably going to end up back over there, overseas.
Yeah. Well, I ended up at the end of the war. I was seagoing. I commanding officer of Marine Detachment aboard the Franklin D. Roosevelt.
Where you were.
That's the biggest ship afloat then. Actually, it was aircraft carrier.
Right. And they, the Marines on there, are there gunners on the guns? Is that
Well,
basically what your detachment
the
would do?
Marine, for some reason, there's always been, I say always, going back, I don't know how many 100 years, there's always been a Marine detachment aboard aircraft carrier, battleship, cruiser. And we had, and yes, they man a gun battery, but primarily, or at least on the Franklin D. Roosevelt, it seemed like all we did was we were ceremonial. We handled all the ceremony. And it's kind of, in my opinion, well, I think they've either done away with it or are going to do away with it. But tradition has always called for a Marine detachment aboard a capital.
I noticed at all the Navy bases, like when I was at North Island, when I was there, they always had Marines at the guard gates.
Yeah.
And now when I go, I notice that they've got Navy guys there. So I don't know if
Well, maybe that has changed. But I know aboard ship, I had a detachment of about 100 men, and we had Eleanor Roosevelt and Harry Truman aboard that ship. It seemed like every time you turn around, and we handled all the ceremony. And of course, it was considered a plum assignment. You know, it was considered a plum, and it was the end of the war. It was the end of the war, and I was having a good time.
So where was it? Where was it?
Brooklyn Navy Yard. They sent us to Rio to inaugurate their new president. They sent us down there, but it's strictly, or my main recollection is ceremonial work. But if war, we would have manned a gun battery.
So when did you get out of the Marine Corps then?
May of '46.
Oh, okay. So after the war was over, so you were still in for a while.
Well, I made the mistake staying in the reserves. And the congressman, you remember well, the old hospital on the west side?
Yeah.
That became the Navy Marine Reserve Training Center. And our congressman, a guy named Ed Mitchell, said to me, Paul, he said, we're going to form a Marine Reserve unit, and I want you to sign up and be command of it. Anyway, I said yes. So in 1950, our units called up Korea. So I did not go to Korea. I went to Marine Corps Recruit Depot and trained recruits and second lieutenants for a year and a half.
Where was that, San Diego?
San Diego, yeah. I might add that the commanding general of the recruit depot in San Diego was a friend of mine from World War II, and I must admit, I let him know I'd been called back. Because our unit went by train across country, went to Pendleton, and then from there they went all different directions, but a lot of them went right to Korea. And I went to San Diego. I was chicken and trained boots and second lieutenants for a year and a half.
There's some water there if you'd like.
Yeah.
I brought that up a little while ago. Had the Marine Corps changed much from when you first went in till then? I mean, your training aspect and stuff like that.
I'm convinced, Dave, that the Marine Corps is stronger now than ever before. I've been back to recruit depot, and was invited back a year ago to reviewing officer for our Marine recruit graduation, and I was very, very favorably impressed. They have a Marine recruit training. You know, the Army and the Navy, the boys and girls go through boot camp together. That's no good. Marine Corps doesn't. And Marine Corps recruit training is very, very intense. And the women, the women are tough too. But I think the other branches made a terrible mistake. Don't you?
I think so.
How can you have a boot camp with little boys, little girls with them? But anyway, yeah, Marine Corps, I think, stronger than ever.
So when you got it, you went back to Evans. Now you met Dell out here in California, and did you get married out here or back in Evans?
Yeah, got married here in Pasadena. Yeah, oh, she.
And so, was there a decision to make whether you stay in California or go back to Evansville? Time or what?
No, we were going back there, and that was well accepted. I might add, she likes being out here in the winter now. She thinks this is even nicer than being in Evansville in the winter, or being in Florida.
Well, yeah.
And it is.
Oh,
it is.
Absolutely. Do you have any children?
Yeah, 4 daughters.
What are their names?
Well, I got Kathy, number 1. Kathy's in Houston. And Gail, number 2, in Indianapolis, Gayle. Number 3 is Annie in Sacramento, California. And the baby is Laura. She's in Lapeer, Michigan, Lapwer, Michigan.
How many grandchildren? How many grandchildren?
We got 8 grandchildren, two son-in-laws.
Do the kids come out here to see you when you're out here much?
Yeah, we've been pretty successful, Dave, in getting them all come out Christmas week. We rent a place right across Fairway from us, Christmas week.
Where do you live out here?
Monterey Country Club.
Oh yeah, I just played golf there Monday.
You what?
I played golf there Monday.
Oh,
Played in a scramble. It was,
for the Jazz?
No, this is for the Sarah Club, the Catholic. It's called the Sarah Club through our church.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah, it was fun. In fact, 'cause I had a condo there a long time ago too.
In Monterey?
Uh-huh.
Is that right?
Santa Barbara Circle.
Is that right? I'll be darned.
What street do you live on?
We're on Castellana North on numbers 6 South, 5 Par.
Yeah.
It's we used to go to Florida in the winter, a golf group or another 3 other couples vacation, and Dell's mother bought a place at Monterey when it was built in 22 years ago. Then
they had a lottery. You had to go to Rancho Las Palmas just to get a number to get in line to buy a place when they were
Is
first.
that right?
Yeah, because that's how I got mine.
Is that right?
It was really something.
So we started coming out here, and needless to say, I like it better than Florida. If anybody doesn't, you
don't have the
better
bugs,
have his head examined.
You don't have the bugs and the humidity and stuff
no.
like that.
And so
Hurricanes.
Yeah, right.
We just have a few earthquakes now and then.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think they talk about earthquake here, but I don't know, built on sand. Yeah, we're 1 story, built on sand. I don't see how.
It doesn't
You gotta
bother
get
me
hurt
at all.
too bad.
But
I play tennis about 3-4 times a week, and work out 3-4 times, play golf about twice a week, so I don't have time for anything else.
Let's go back to, okay, so you guys went back, they got married. And so what did you do when you first went back to Evansville?
Well, went in church business with my dad. And, yeah, I was,
Did you play much golf and tennis back in Evansville?
oh, I've kind of played at golf then tennis for a long time. I've been playing in some of these 80 singles tournaments out here,
Yeah.
tennis tournaments.
Okay.
I don't have any athletic ability, but I've got good knee. I never had a sore knee in my life.
Did you play over at Mission Hills when they had just last week?
Yeah.
Did you really?
Yeah, I
Oh.
played in that senior
You
tournament.
did? Well,
Yeah.
we live at Mission Hills, so
You live in
that's
Mission
where I
Hills?
play tennis all the time. Yeah.
You still play tennis?
Oh yeah. We'll have to play some. I play on the grass. I love playing on the grass.
Well, I've been playing on clay out at the
that's
gardens,
good.
out at the Indian Wells Gardens.
Yeah.
And I've got a guy who's a member out there. We play on clay, and it's we play dead even, which is kind of nice.
Yeah. Oh,
You find a guy singles who play even with you. Boy, that's perfect.
Yeah, I love to play singles. So, where did you play golf in Evansville?
Evansville Country Club.
My uncle played golf, and he was the first one that kind of showed me a little bit about it. He played at Helfrich and Fendrick, you know.
Who was
So
that?
It was my uncle. His name was Earl Thompson.
Uh-huh.
But
Yeah. Well, golf's a good game, but it's if you're having a bad game, long day on the course.
Oh.
You're 4.5 hours.
To me, I mean, I played sports all my life. I love all kinds of sports, but I think golf's the most difficult to get good at.
Yeah.
It's just,
I had for some crazy reason this year, I don't know why, in January, I shot my age 3 times. And I'm not really, you know, I shot, well, one time, I shot 1 under my age with 2 triple bogeys. I had an 80 with 2 triples. Isn't that crazy?
yeah.
And but I'm back on the game now. They called me a sandbagger for what? That was the best compliment I ever had.
So you started coming out here about 20 some odd years ago?
Yeah,
you
about
said?
started coming out here about 81, I'm guessing, and we rented about 3-4 years. We bought in 85.
And where's your home in Evansville? Where do you live?
On Browning Road, which is McCutcheonville, north of town,
Right, yeah.
11 to 10 miles north.
I grew up out by St. Joe, out on Highway 65.
Oh, did you?
Road.
Yeah. I played tennis for about 10 years with a friend of yours by the name of Ron Wannemuller.
Oh yeah, sure. He was a year ahead of me.
Yeah, Uncle Ron, I called him.
Yeah.
Nice curly-haired guy.
Yeah. His cousin Larry Wannemuller and I were we were in the same class together. We were best friends, and Larry was on the golf team. It's funny. I didn't play any golf, you know, growing up. You always thought of golf and tennis as being a sissy sport,
Yeah,
you know. So
that's
I
right.
played football and basketball and stuff. But finally, just as I was getting out of high school, my 2 best friends were on the golf team. So they would take me out, and I was just terrible, you know, and I'd hit the ball and go sideways and everything, you know, and they'd shoot in the 70s all the time, you know, and I'd be lucky to break 100. Well, about 4 or 5 years ago, I went back home, and we went out and played. And I had my best round ever. I shot like 73, and they both shot like 81 or 82. So
Oh, wasn't that fun?
That was really fun.
Yeah, I'll say.
But yeah, it's good. Well, it's sure nice to have you out here.
Well,
I'm sure
I've
you're
enjoyed it. Sorry, I don't have any. I couldn't make that war experience more exciting.
Oh, it was plenty exciting for anybody.
But I can get that. I can
We'll
get
get
that
that
to you,
information,
Dave.
sure.
Read it.
Paul, thanks so much.
Yes, sir. Well,
for
thank
coming.
you. Thank you, David.
Very much. Enjoyed it.
Bill, I appreciate it.
Bill, did you have anything else you would want to ask him, Paul, or
No, did you say you were here permanent now?
No, we're here from November to May each year.
Okay.
We drive out November, back in May. I say we. My wife drives every mile. She won't let me drive. But as I tell her, I'm a navigator, and that's very important.
That's right.
Besides, I have to do my crossword puzzles.
Does she play golf or tennis?
She plays golf.
Does she?
Yeah.
So you guys play together sometimes?
Some, but little girls, they kind of look at golf differently. I mean,
Don't take it quite as seriously.
they want to. She can't understand why I don't want to play golf with her on a regular basis.
And you don't really want to explain to her.
No. I'll tell you.
It's not a good idea.
Remember, the camera's still rolling here.
One of my good friends, one of my good friends refers to Sunday golf, couple golf, Sunday, as the Baton Death March. And the little girls, they fail to see the humor in that.
And I assume that you met Bob Barthel, being both of you in insurance. Is that how you got together?
Yeah, insurance, and Bob was pretty active in Republican politics, and I was not active like he was, but I was a very close friend of Bob Orr, who was our governor for 8 years, and Bob Barthel worked on Bob Orr's behalf. So, but I play tennis with Bob. Have you played tennis with him?
I have. Yeah. I had him over to the grass a couple times, and yeah, he's fun.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't want to play with him every day, but
yeah.
I think he's fun.
Well, I prefer singles. It's better for me, and I like fast, action singles.
Yes.
And Bob, Bob is deliberate. And he's always wounded. He's wounded about half the time. He's got a groin pull or a hamstring. I said, Bob, why do you want to be wounded like that? Why don't you work out and strengthen those muscles? He doesn't like my counseling.
Where do you work out, by the way?
Well, I work out at Palm Valley. We have a Monterey and Palm Valley are their American Golf is. I don't know if you guys are familiar with American Golf, but they're in. I don't know. I think they're in financial. Well, I know they're in financial trouble, so I don't know what it's going to be next year. But we have reciprocal privileges, not for the golf, but we do for their fitness. They got a marvelous fitness center, so I go over there about 3 times a week.
I noticed that I go back to Evansville about once a year now. In fact, as I'm going back, well, Bob and I will both probably be there. Our 45th high school reunions this year, so
are you?
We have them every 5 years. So
You're going back this year?
Mm-hmm. My mom lives. She sold. My dad passed away 3 or 4 years ago, and she sold our farm that we had out there, and she's out on Green River Road and Lynch Road, kind of right in there. There's a kind of a retirement.
Oh, I know.
There's a
You're
low.
right.
It's really nice. And
Yeah, oh, yeah.
she's 87 now, and she
Isn't that
walks 3 or 4 miles every day, and she walks to church, and she's got macular degeneration, so she can't drive anymore.
I know right where that is. Green
Yeah.
River and Lynch. I go by there, Green River Road, going to the Racket Club 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've noticed that I think the economy's pretty good in Evansville now. It seems like everything's really growing.
Very good.
It's very strong.
Big
now.
Toyota plants
Right.
meant a lot
By Princeton.
to Evansville.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'll see you back there.
Well, I hope so.
All right.
Okay, that's
Well-
great. We'll wrap her up then.